call this Tuesday, September 11th, 2018 Board of Health meeting to order at 7:01. The agenda is subject to change and includes items that are reasonably anticipated by myself, the chair, to be discussed at the meeting. Not all agenda items may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being taped and broadcast live on WACA television. Will be rebroadcast numerous times. And are anybody else doing any audio or video recording of the meeting? Seeing none, we will start the meeting. Today, unfortunately, is the 17th anniversary of the horrific events of 9/11. And with that, as board member Chris Daniels requested, I would like to ask for a moment of silence as we remember that day. Thank you. And Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, I brought a picture in, a point of reflection for us all. That picture was taken in July of 2001, 2 months before they went down. I was visiting the city and was on a double-decker bus and just snapped it as we drove under. And I keep that hung in my bedroom now. And every so often, you know, we'll stop and say a prayer or think about the events of the day and, you know, I think everyone's got their own story. You know, growing up in New York, there's legend about when the towers went up, and you know, if you were to throw a penny off the tower, it would crush someone in the head if it hit them on the head, and the speed of the elevators and all different things. But those stories are just stories now. They're a piece of the past, a piece of history, like the building. So we reflect on what it means to us, what it meant to us, and we move forward and try and be stronger.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you for that, Chris. It's very nice. And he doesn't know that I'm about to do this, but my good friend and Ashland's good friend and the chairman of the Ashland Day Committee, who is also a veteran of the United States Army, our friend Bill Gath, I'd like to ask him to lead us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bill. And with that, we'll open it up to citizens' participation. Mark, I think the handsome gentleman behind you beat you this time.
Age before beauty.
Oh, oh.
Well, he's right. So, thank you, Mark. Steve Mitchell, 5 Newcastle Road. I'm here as both a resident and as a member of the Select Board. I know your next agenda item is regarding the Mill Pond rest home situation. First of all, I want to thank John and KG for your response over the weekend, and as well as public safety. I don't see any of the public safety folks here tonight, but I want to thank them as well. We had, at our last board meeting, we had a very brief discussion about the Mill Pond situation. I think it's concerning to everybody, or should be concerning to everybody. And my intent in making my comments are not to inflame a situation, but just, I think it's important that we have a concern as local officials, as a community, about oversight with this situation. This particular instance was not the first. There's been several situations you may or may not be aware of. I know that Officer Karpousis is involved with working with this situation. So, you know, I guess my only comment is to express the importance of oversight as government and local officials. I think I would ask the board, as you're deliberating on this, to work on a collaboration between the Select Board, the Board of Health, and Public Safety to have a continuous oversight on this. I think we're all familiar with situations where the intent may have been good, but the execution was not. And so tragedies resulted from the lack of oversight. So I don't want that on my watch. I'm sure you don't want it on yours. So I would ask you to just reflect on that as you consider your course of action. So, thank you.
Thank you for that. And you're gonna stay for the discussion?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Everybody should have a place that they can say that it's good to be in and not have to worry about anything. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mark Tassoni, 49 Hawthorne Road, Ashland, Mass. I want to be public to Chris on his moment of silence idea.
Mm-hmm. You can do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mark.
I have a different way of remembering the date, because on August 31st, it's not September 11, but August 31st, 1999, my mother, who was born on September 11th, is how I remember her birthday to that. The gives and takes, and the negatives and the positive. With that, one more thing. Send out prayers and hopefully good fortunes to the people in the Carolinas where Hurricane Florence coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else here for citizens' participation? Seeing none, we'll move to item number 3, the Mill Pond Rest Home review of the incident on September 3rd, 2018, the basement flooding and future protocol. Is there anybody here from Mill Pond? If you guys want to pull up 2 chairs maybe, and then we'll slide over a microphone for you and hopefully have a place to stand.
Nice side.
And just for the public record, and thank you both for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join with us, if we could just get both of you to state who you are, your roles, and your addresses.
My name is Kathy Lill.
Kathy, you might want to pull the microphone just a little bit closer to you.
A registered nurse in the administrator of Mill Pond, and I live at 13 Pinecrest Lane in Ashland.
Thank you.
My name is Matt Sweeney. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Long-Term Centers Group, one of which is our family owns Mill Pond Rest Home. I live in Boston, Mass., 26 Belton Street.
Okay, well, thank you. And just so the board knows, and, you know, just a little background for the public, you know, the board has not discussed this issue. On Monday, September 3rd, Labor Day, KG and I both received a call from the Ashland Fire Department letting us know that there was a problem at Mill Pond. KG actually made it to the site before that I did, and Mark eventually made it to the site as well. KG, I'll let you kind of explain what you found when you first went on site.
Yeah, when I went there, I think I met fire chief. I don't remember his name. but
Fire Chief Keith Roby.
Keith Roby there, and then he told me to talk to the janitor or the supervisor who was there, and he led me into the basement. I found the first portion of the basement filled with water, but there was a pump going on, and subsequent to that, there was another basement area that was flooded, and the water was more or less stagnant there. So that's what I found, and then it was smelling bad. And by the time John came in, and then we inspected further.
And the one thing, reason I want to bring this to you, and I want to set the tone right now. What we found was totally unacceptable, and I will use the word personally. Now, I won't speak for the board, but I will personally tell you I was appalled. When the maintenance man who works for you, whose name I would misrepresent, I said to him, kind of like in an innocuous comment, well, how long has this been going on? Thinking that maybe it just happened today. He goes 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm like, what?
With the leak in the pipe?
No, that's,
The basement being flooded.
no, that's not true.
Kathy, I'm speaking.
Oh,
I'll let you
okay.
speak.
Yep.
But, you know, we had this conversation on the phone, so it's not news to you. So, and I'm not blaming him, and I'm not saying that, you know, that's the first words out of his mouth is it's been going on for 2 or 3 weeks. So, under the advisement of Chief Roby, you know, and the building inspector, who, is he not gonna be joining us tonight?
He cannot join us tonight.
He's not gonna be joining us tonight. The concern was it healthy for the residents? That's when I contacted you, Kathy. tried to get a hold of you a couple different times, and then finally one of your staff got a hold of you. And we had the agreement that you were going to correct the problem, and the chief advised me that I was making the right decision to give you the opportunity to right a wrong. I go back to work, because it was a work day for me. I come back a couple hours later, there's been no progress. Everything's locked up and shut up, and that's when I called you, and your words to me were that you were gonna take care of it the next day, which then I informed you was totally unacceptable, because you and I had an agreement that you were gonna rectify that problem that day. So, we had a health concern, we had a problem, and it was, I feel like it was ignored. So then I contacted the police department to say, if we can't get this problem rectified, what is the emergency plan to evacuate the building? I'm told by your staff, you don't have one. We think we can put them up at the church. So that's why you're here today, to kind of talk about how we could get this far along. And then, more importantly, on a busy weekend where something goes wrong, your staff's not trained. So, am I leaving anything out, Mike?
Well, we also had the food inspector examine facilities, and so there's several deficiencies noted on that report as well, including exterior issues. As it relates to the call-out by the fire department, they called us all out to make sure that we could assure safety and prevent any obnoxious odors of any type. Objectionable odors is the word, I guess, of any type. Upon my arrival, ventilation was occurring in the hallways upstairs on the first floor, and at that point I could not smell any
Right.
objectionable odors. But in the basement, it was wet, and fortunately, I didn't realize this, they have a cement floor which couldn't be visible at the time of the first inspection. I found that out 2 days later after they cleaned up the water. They discovered the leak. The leak was caused by plumbing leaking between the foundation and causing it to seep at the floor level. But the company you hired did remove the dirt, and they did find a cement floor below there, so that's actually a good thing. And we're waiting on their next report to indicate their final process in cleaning up the water leak that was in the basement. And we were called up by the fire because they had an issue going on at the same time. The fire alarm went off, and it was due to the fact that the pressure for the fire suppression system went down. And when that pressure goes down, it triggers the fire alarm. And the fire alarm was triggered, which triggered the fire department, which in turn they called us due to the wet basement and objectionable odors. So I would say you've added mostly everything else to it.
So the concern of police, fire, and our health agent is, well, what is the plan if we do have to evacuate the building? And there was no plan on record. Your staff was not aware of a contingency plan. And based on the multiple phone conversations I had with you, it is my strong statement that you don't have a contingency plan, because you didn't.
We do have a contingency plan, and when you first called me, I didn't know what company to call, okay? I said, oh my God, I gotta think about this.
Right.
So I suggested Rodenheiser, and then you suggested SurfPro.
Mhm.
So I called SurfPro. When I called them, they told me they could be out there. They were on the way from Brockton. They got to the site. They put 2 sump pumps in. I told them that the Board of Health wanted everything done that night. They put 2 sump pumps in and left without me knowing. Later on, when you called me back, you told me they were not there.
Mhm.
I called them. They told me that they could not do the job because they could not get a dumpster that day.
Right.
So I gave them your number so they could speak to you directly. In the meantime, Mark came up with another name, 24 Trauma,
Yep.
of which I called. I told them that it had to be cleaned up tonight. Could they come? Could they do it? They said yes, they came, they were on site, and they remained on site for, I don't think they were officially done, but Sunday was the last time they were here.
Yeah, a couple days. Yeah.
So there wasn't any way to postpone it a day. It was just that the company was unable to do it that day. so we had to
I
get
understand
another
that,
company.
and I totally
So
understand it
the
because it was
intent to
Labor
have
Day.
it cleaned up was there.
But if I hadn't returned to site, would I have ever been contacted by you?
Well, I was not there, so I wasn't aware of it.
Well,
And I
and
can't
that-
I mean,
and
I
that's the reason
apologize
why
that I
you're-
wasn't
but that's-
there.
No, and you know
you
what,
know?
everybody deserves a holiday away,
Right.
and that's not, but the reason why you're in front of us tonight is not
Mhm.
because you had an accident. Accidents happen, that's part
Right.
of, that's part of life. The reason why you're in front of us is tonight is you didn't know what the evacuation plan for your building was, and your staff didn't know what the plan was.
Well,
And that is very concerning to
I
a
do know
lot
what
of
the
members of this
evacuation
community.
plan is.
Well, you might know today, but is it
No,
a?
I knew, I
is it a-
told Mark it was St. Cecilia's Church, okay? And this disaster manual is kept in the RP office,
But when we called St. Cecilia's Church,
yeah,
we didn't get a response. We didn't hear from them. And what was the plan to transport them from there? What was the plan to get them over there? If I can't get them as a public official on the phone, how were you gonna get them on the phone all the way up in Maine?
it would have been to call the Red Cross and get the Red Cross to get started.
The Red Cross wouldn't do that.
Unfortunately, the Red Cross will only act on natural man-made disasters, not on issues that are occurring within your own business. We found that out in a previous situation of a major
If-
water leak. Can I finish?
Yeah,
May I finish, Mr. Chair?
Please.
On a previous water leak at an apartment complex that housed about 13 people. They will respond if there's a natural disaster such as a hurricane, winter storm issues as we had back in the beginning of March of this year. So that they will assist, and that will be for the entire town, including your facility. But if you have a plan with the Red Cross, I would suggest you add that to it. If they do allow you to have them assist you during issues that are occurring based on your use at the facility, might it be a plumbing leak as this was, then it would be interesting to see how they can help you, and they should be listed as one of your contacts for transportation. It's a good opportunity, if they can't, for you to contact our emergency director, that's our fire chief, to work out plans. I actually looked into your plan and called MEMA, and what they noted is there is a action plan that could be provided to them. It's called MAP, and that could help you get to the point where you need to be if you're not there yet. Especially, I would suggest a yearly update to the numbers. We have to do it ourselves for emergency preparedness. We have to update everyone's numbers and who's chair and all that. It would be advisable, especially for contacts such as if St. Cecilia's was your contact, are they still your contact? Transportation, who do you have? We can all help you too. It's not like we're trying to say, do it on your own, but when it comes to your own facility and you have your own, say, mechanical issues in there, there may be the opportunity for the Red Cross, but in most cases they address like fires, hurricanes, and so forth. But we could help you to see if there's other opportunities. We have bus companies that work for our schools. Could they be available to you? Those things can all be, we could all sit down and review that to see what could happen so that you have an up-to-date and on a yearly basis prepared plan. So I'm willing to work with Chief Roby and your company to see what can be done. But the important part is to have it updated every year, because things change.
yeah, and I can update my maintenance person is fairly new.
Mr.
Okay?
Chairman?
Yes, please.
So, one of the things I was just going over this, the rest home level on the DPH side is a lower regulation, so we've always had this in place because they requested it several years back, and I know it because I wrote this at one of our other skilled nursing facilities. So we are familiar with MAP.
Okay.
So, and we're familiar with, one of the other things that we had tentatively on here, which I spoke to Mr. Woods about, is in an event of emergency, we would use alert ambulance services to fill, to get people to our other open beds first, to make sure that we could care for them, as well as we had 2 or 3 other options on here before that we were looking at, but we settled on St. Cecilia's Church. But in nowhere in 37 years have we had to use it, but I do agree that we need to be better prepared for this. So what we've talked about is coming out and in-servicing the staff, updating this, and we can get this to you on an annual basis if requested. And any other problems, we are invested in this town for a long, long time, so I wanna make sure if there are concerns, that we'll address them.
Thank you.
That-
Comments from the board?
Sure, I have a couple of suggestions that they should do. Your staff is not well trained to find out what is available on paper, to telephone numbers to contact and other things. And the chain of command, it looked like it stopped there, and then if she was not available, everything was berserk. So we need to make sure that if she's not available, the next level up should be
I will
available
make
to
sure I'm
them. So
available.
that's
Yeah,
one thing.
Absolutely.
And that should be
And-
posted, you know, not for your residents to see, but that should be posted in your office where, you know, if this happens, you call this person. You can't get hold of this person, you call this person.
Right.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
it's, what we do in our other buildings is that we have it at the nurses' station.
Right.
So we'll have our policies as well as the emergency plan, as well as our contact list. I'll make sure that we have a binder down there moving forward.
It is.
The-
But unfortunately, and why we thought it was important that we invite you guys out here tonight, this isn't the first time Kathy and I have seen this movie. This is multiple times over the years that we've had situations up at your establishment where we've had these types of conversations. We've had these types of, you know, when you had the power outage for 3 days, what was that, 6, 7 years ago? We fixed the power outage in 3 days if we had known about it, if we had known stuff about it. So my concern as a public health official, because Ron and Chris weren't there, but KG was there, is it was obvious to me, and maybe, hopefully KG, that your staff had no idea that, number one, you had a problem, and number two, my words, sense of urgency to rectify a problem. And that was concerning to me, based on the type of facility that you guys are. And I think it's important that you hear that from the Board of Health, that
I can retrain my staff.
that can't happen. But that's my concern. You're so you're agreeing with me.
No, I can retrain. My second person that I had for a long time is no longer there, and I haven't found a person to fill that spot yet.
But we would
So-
all agree that this is an important,
Oh, it's very
you provided
important.
important service to the
Yes,
community.
a very important service.
In my words, it wasn't evident that day, and that's what I'm concerned about. So what I need to hear from you, sir, is what we're gonna do to fix this problem. Because I'm gonna make the recommendation to the board that we escalate this to the state level. I believe in local control, much as like Mr. Mitchell said, and I believe that we work with Mark and Public Safety and the Board of Selectmen, that we have local control. But based on the track record, it's gonna be my recommendation to the board that we escalate this to the state level as well.
Okay, but I do think we can fix this on the local level. It's, from talking with Kathy since Labor Day, and I spoke with Mark that evening, I believe, we had that conversation. Was it the next day?
The next morning.
The next morning? And at that point, you know, I think that escalation is evident, on our part. We will be, on the policy and training side, we will be there, and on the investment in services, we will be there.
Okay.
There's no doubt about it. We've done it over the years, as, you know, we've been here since 1981, so we're not gonna scorch on that now. So we'd like to work with the board.
Thank you.
And, you know, and take into account any recommendations that you have. As well as we'll be doing on-site visits and walkthroughs with our own consultants to take a look and make sure that things like this don't happen.
Right. The other thing that I find if somebody walks into the basement room again, you find a lot of debris there. If it was full of water and if a person walks in there and trips over and falls down, it's much dangerous. So make sure that the entire thing is cleaned up there.
Okay.
Right next to the sprinkler system, you have a motor which is not connected, which is just sitting there. And if somebody trips over, I'm sure they're going to fall down there. So make sure it's safe enough. And I also know that there are several other issues in other departments. We may not have jurisdiction over this department, but make sure you talk to them and then comply with those also.
I know we
That's
had the
important.
Department of Public Health out there last week. You know, they did find that we were in compliance at the time on the follow-up, so, and we will work with them as well as life safety.
Yeah, the one particular thing that I noticed is the driveway has a lot of big potholes, and when people drive with the elderly people,
Yep.
when it jumps down, it could break their back. So make sure that's fixed also too.
Yeah, we have an external plan in place as far as, I don't wanna call it a beautification project, but that's what it is. It's going to be, you know, from the fence to the driveway to the exterior.
Safety is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Keep that in
But
mind.
that was part of it by doing the
Yeah, and
driveway
then
over.
reach out to the other departments. Make sure that they're questions are also answered and taken care of.
Okay.
We may not have jurisdiction over it, but they have it.
It was mentioned in the food inspection as well, that the driveway is still part of
Mhm.
the full safety issue around these facilities, so, it's noted on your food inspection report as well.
Okay.
Can I ask how many residents live at the home?
Right
Right
now,
now, 25,
25?
12 men, 15, when we're full, 12 men, 15 women.
And are they there now at this particular point, or have they been moved out somewhere else? while
No,
you're-
they're there,
They're there at the moment?
yeah. They were
Has-
never evacuated.
Okay, they were never evacuated.
Right.
Have their families, or any of their families been informed of the
Only
situation?
one person has a family, and yes,
Okay.
yeah, they're, mostly were homeless, indigent people without families.
Yeah, I apologize if I don't know much about the home, so.
we invite you guys to come up anytime.
Thank you.
Mm.
The other thing is that if something happens there, reach out to us. We are not here to just whip you out, but we are here to help you out. So make sure, let us know what happens, then we can suggest some remedies and
Yeah.
make sure what's easy for us to do, all right?
On the plus side too, just so you know, I do have the water department comes out every single month, and they do go down in the basement, and they do check my water usage, and they do check for leaks, because at my request a couple of years ago, because our water bill is just so outrageously high. So the 2 pipes that broke had to have happened within the recent past, because they were out the end of August, so. And
Ron,
they're
you have any
very
comments?
good.
No, good points by everybody. This is just a personal thing. What's, and you don't have to get into it heavy duty, what's the difference in definition and then your responsibilities between, because apparently you said you own skilled nursing facilities versus a rest home? What are,
The rest home on the state and federal level is slightly regulated. The skilled nursing facilities are severely regulated, where pretty much everything is broken down as far as physical plants, clinical supplies, things of that nature. The rest home was left for a long time as an uninspected type of, we're up for annual DPH surveys on the skilled nursing level, where rest homes were never of that level, because a lot of the folks were able to come and go, drive, have jobs, to that nature. So it was a little bit different over the years, but I think that has been changing. The last 3 years, DPH has been in on an annual basis, whereas prior to that, they hadn't been in for 8 years. So I think the regulatory compliance is picking up, and which is why we've done a few things. That was one of the first things they had asked for back then when they first came in after a long time, was a disaster plan in place and a number of different policies. So, and like I said, the last couple of times they've come in, it's been under compliance, and as recently as the one last week as well.
and what, is there any scheduled follow-up for that or for this in the future, or is this
On our
problem
part?
considered rectified, though, by the DPH? Or do they come back in and
They-
inspect, or?
Normally, they
Yeah.
came out and inspected that day.
Right.
I think that might have been Wednesday.
Yeah.
And they found everything to be in compliance, and normally, historically, just through experience, they won't come back. They'll do what's called a desk audit. If they found something that was severe, they would come out.
If I can
Okay.
just ask to that, did they come out just to re-inspect the work done in the basement, or did they do a full audit?
No, they did the whole,
They looked through all your records for comfort, safety, mental health?
they spoke, yeah, they wrote,
They did
there was
a
a nurse,
full-
a social worker, and the life safety officer, and they went throughout the whole
They
building.
didn't tell us that. I thought they had
Um,
2 surveyors just for.
No, there
the
was
work.
3.
To the
They spoke with the
Sorry.
residents, yeah,
And you have a copy of that?
no,
They will usually provide that via mail or actually email now.
takes about 6 weeks.
Isn't
Can
that odd
ask
that we
for
don't
it.
have that?
Yeah, no, I'll ask for it. You
Okay.
can ask for it.
Mr. Mitchell, do you have any comments or any questions? No? Okay. Mr. Mignani, your years of a public police officer, I think, are vital to this. Do you have any comments? Or?
No, I think it's important that they do get a master plan of preparedness handed to you folks, because that is a priority as far as I'm concerned. We can't do anything else without that.
We will update this for you
Thank
ASAP.
No, I think KG brought up, I think, probably the best point of the day. I hope you guys don't, I mean, yeah, are we being heavy-handed? Yeah, because that's what our job is to do. We ensure public safety and public health. But I think KG made the best point, is that please look at us as an ally. You know, we're here to help,
Absolutely.
because we care about the residents in the town. Yeah, are we gonna hold you accountable? Absolutely, we're gonna hold you accountable. But use this as a resource. The fire chief is willing to sit there and work with a plan with you. Mark is more than willing to work with the plan. We don't want you to ever have to come back here and go through this again. So please view us as an asset, not as a deterrent. But at the same time, you have to prove to us that, you know, that you guys are making the right strides. So my recommendation to the board, and I'll make it in follows the motion, is that we'll give you until next Monday to get us a written plan and proof that the plan is posted, available, and that you've at least started staff trainings on it, okay? And if not, then we'll come back and we'll invite you back. And, because I believe in documentation, if you don't document it didn't happen, we will write a letter letting the state know, to DPH, that we took no corrective action, but that we're working with you on a safety plan and a contingency plan, and just to make them aware.
That's
So that-
fair.
and I'll make that in the form of a motion.
We'll start
Second.
that tomorrow, Mr. Chairman.
I second that.
Further discussion?
So receipt by September 17th?
September 17th, yeah. That'll give you enough time, right? You think, Kathy?
For training and update the policy and training and post it, yeah,
To post
absolutely.
it?
Yeah,
And having the emergency plan forwarded, the updated emergency plan forwarded.
But the
to us.
key thing is, if you're on vacation in Maine, who do we call if you're gone?
It'll be next.
right, it'll be
And-
back
and if
until
you're
I
on
find someone.
vacation, who do we call to get, you know?
It'll be Tom, yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're truly, your evacuation plan is St. Cecilia's, I think that we need in writing, and maybe Joe, you could help us with this a little bit, you know, who transports them? Who gets a hold of the church? Cause as much as like we sit here and say that we're willing to help, we don't work there. You
Right.
guys do. I mean, Mr. Oram was very, very helpful in getting the person to come out and, you know, clean the company. And that's the type of spirit that we have. We'll all work together and do it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's not our responsibility to do that. We're happy to help. But there's gotta be, you know, you call this person, this is the transportation company that calls. If it truly is the church, then who do we get a hold of at the church? And if we can't get a hold of that person, who's the second person that we get a hold? It all has to be documented.
Absolutely.
Almost like a flow chart, and you know what I'm talking
Yep.
about.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, some of the emergency disaster plans that we have on campus at Mass Bay have a page in the back, and it's a separate page because the numbers are subject and the people are subject to change so often. I'd like to see that on the plan, a page
Yeah.
that actually has those numbers in it.
Yep,
So it's
absolutely.
right there with the plan.
It's on the back page of it now, where it has all the numbers for Ashland Fire, my number, Tom's number, Jack's number, Kathy's number, all these other people.
Is the church number on there?
I don't believe it is.
And a transportation company?
Yeah, that we will definitely get a transportation agreement on file with you.
That
And
of,
we
And
al-
we'd like a copy of that, because, so we can keep it
Yeah.
in the office, that God forbid.
Do you want a copy of this, the one we have?
We have that.
no, we already
Yeah,
have
why don't
that.
you- why don't you just put everything together and
We'll update it for you,
and
Brandon.
update and put it in a
Sure.
in a
Yeah.
folder?
We also, believe it, have it in 2 languages too.
That's
So that's
important as
staff,
well,
so-
thank
Yeah,
you.
you had submitted that back when we met with you in 2011.
Right.
So, that's what we had on file, was it was already 7 years old, so.
Yeah,
And I would suggest sending also an electronic copy to the fire department, because they are our emergency management, our
Mhm.
fire chief is the emergency management director, and the Board of Health, so that we have at least some knowledge of it. And as you pursue additional resources, let us know if we can help.
Well, that was gonna be my second motion, is that after you guys get this plan in place, I think it's paramount that you meet with Mark and you meet with the fire chief, and it could be a 10-minute meeting, but I think you guys all get in a room, probably here, and you discuss, you know, another plan. So the fire chief is, you know, and fully aware of what's going on, the health agent is fully aware, and then he'll update this board of what's going on, because, I mean, we've had multiple incidents up over there over the years, and, you know, it's too important not to have a plan.
And again, if it's a man-made or natural disaster, we are going to be opening up shelters or a shelter. The only issue we would have, and that's where we need your help, is with special populations that might need medical assistance. We need your staff to be there, such as distributing medicine or caring for special situations. So there'll be space available, and that's where the fire chief, you and I will work together. But obviously, we will have trained people in sheltering, but they may not be as highly skilled as nurses as it relates to medicine distribution and so forth. So that's where that two-way street comes into hand. That's again for natural man-made disasters, and we'll go from there.
Mark, I'm on the local emergency planning board for a couple of towns, so I'll be more than willing to help out
Great.
here as well.
Great.
You know, it'd be part of the action, because same thing, if it is a natural disaster, we would absolutely be in line to help out the town.
Sure, that's very, very considerate. Thank you.
One other key point that I want to make sure that having data on the sheet and the file is not enough. You need to give it to the staff. They should have a copy available, posted in your office building within the area,
We
so
will in
it's easy.
service this week, absolutely,
Mhm.
do the training.
And then have a book they can just pull out
Yep.
that's labeled emergency management,
Yeah.
that nature.
Absolutely.
Would part of the plan, if someone had to be relocated and they're on a particular medical protocol, is there a plan for how that information gets?
That's the one
sent?
thing that wasn't in here that I want to make sure we did put in there with our other 3 buildings. Anybody clinically with needs would be, you know, we would use those open beds priority. And then we also have a number of different case managers that work for us, that if, you know, for some instance, we needed to find another clinical bed, we would have them actively out there looking for a clinical bed. You know, but we wouldn't want to put somebody that has a clinical need in the basement of a church, say, for instance,
Right.
you know.
So my
Yeah.
second motion would be that Mark
Let's-
arrange a
let's-
meeting with the.
Let's finish the first
Oh,
one.
yeah, that's right, we didn't finish the first one, did we? No.
Yeah, we
So
need-
all in favor to my first motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So that's a 4-0 vote. And then you have something you want?
No.
Oh, okay. And then my second motion would be that Mark organize a meeting after the plan is in place, so the chief can evaluate it, and that
It's-
our guest and Mark and the
Needs to-
fire chief meet.
They need to meet. That's
Yes,
what
Yes.
the motion is to condition them, not conditioning Mark.
Well, it's the board to direct Mark to set up a
Okay.
meeting, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So we will get that to you by Monday at the latest, and then meet shortly thereafter.
And then you
I
can-
second that.
Read it, communicate with you, and setting a meeting.
That's fine.
I second
the
that.
following week.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, guys, thank you. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, we
board.
appreciate you taking the time.
No,
Thank
my
you.
pleasure.
Excuse me.
I didn't see it on the last page. Dates of August, but it said 11/17.
Okay.
So it was, I didn't see it. They still have results.
Now we have the votes.
Good overview, really well needed.
All right, our next item. Is that them? Thank you. Our next item is item number 4 on the agenda, Marathon Mobile, transfer of a tobacco permit and review of tobacco regulations, sections E11, B, and C. Hey there we are.
Hello, guys.
Why don't you guys pull up a couple chairs and we'll have a nice conversation up at the table.
David, come up
Oh,
to
they
the
have
table.
Oh, one more, okay.
We got enough microphones.
Yeah, you have enough.
David's a regular, so he knows the drill, but you guys will both have to tell us who you guys are, why you're here, and where you live.
I am Lara Copel. I'm an attorney in South Weymouth, Massachusetts, and this is my client, Mahmoud Hassan. And he would like to purchase David's convenience store and gas station here in Ashland. And it's our hope that we can get a tobacco license to move forward with the sale of the business, or the
Okay.
purchase of the business.
And I'm sorry, sir, where do you reside?
Sorry?
Where do you
I
live?
live in Weymouth.
You might want to pull that microphone just a little bit closer to. Thank you.
I live in Weymouth.
Thank you, thank you. And you, ma'am?
I'm Debbie Lima, I'm his wife.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
this is,
So she's the real boss.
Yeah.
And then you, sir?
David DePrizio, owner of Marathon Mobile.
Thank you so much. All right, Mark, why are these
They
nice
are
people in
here
front of us
because
tonight?
they, you'll see in the letter, they were invited to be here to discuss their changeover of a license, a tobacco license. And the board has behind that letter the regulations, and in those regulations, it's highlighted. If it was just to do that, as long as it's done within 60 days, that is allowed, automatic. They wouldn't be here right now. But they're a new applicant, and as a new applicant, if you look at section B, a new applicant cannot be within 500 feet of a school. And they happen to be a direct abutter to a school. Their property line meets the middle school property line. So with that said, the board would have to, they wouldn't be able to get a permit unless the board, unless they ask for a waiver to this section. So that's why they're here. They're here to discuss that. I don't know if their attorney's gonna start that process, but they're here asking for a waiver, and then it's up to the board to decide.
And that law, Mark, excuse me, that was implemented when? A couple years ago?
I can check that for you, the tobacco control regulations. They've been here for a long time, but they've been updated through the years.
Right.
I can give you
But this
the most
particular
recent-
model with the school.
I can give you the most recent. That was probably 5 years
I
ago.
was gonna say, it was probably when we changed to 2021.
Yeah.
It doesn't get grandfathered when you transfer the ownership, does it?
When you transfer ownership, there's no grandfather.
Okay.
When the regulation became law through the Board of Health's approval, the person, David, who had the license already, was grandfathered
Right.
then. So
Okay, so the new owner
we're
will
at
not
the
be.
new point now where it's,
Yeah.
David
Which
does plan on
leaves,
still
it
being
just
the
leaves a few
landlord.
issues because it means I can never sell, you know, the store,
An
you know.
asset, yeah.
Because, as you guys know, tobacco, it's, none of us like it, you know, we know it's not a good thing. But unfortunately, it's a reality, you know, in my business anyways. And it really devalues my whole business if I can't transfer that license, because I can't run it when I'm gone.
Right.
You know, so, and it's really, and I understand. Now, it doesn't affect high schools, right? It's just middle school that I read or something?
Well, it's all
No, it's
schools.
schools.
Oh, it is, because it just saw elementary and secondary school. I didn't know what that.
Secondary is your middle school, junior
Elementary,
high, high
yeah.
school.
Oh, right. I wasn't sure. I just read it that
They all
way.
get captured into secondary.
Yeah.
So that's what that captures.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I was gonna blame you guys for making it to middle school. You can't do that.
Elementary is the younger grades.
Yeah.
Actually, if
Counsel,
I.
do you have any comments?
Yes,
Yeah.
if I may comment,
Might wanna pull that microphone.
oh,
just so
sorry.
People at home can't hear you, thank you.
If I may comment, for another client, for another store, I did contact the lottery, and for that store to get, a lottery license, there are 4 staples plus gasoline that a store has to have, and that's gallons of milk, soda, newspapers, and tobacco. And without, if you take any of the, what they call staples out of that equation, they don't have to grant a lottery license. So the lack of a tobacco.
Oh, I didn't have.
Yeah,
even
so
I
this
didn't
is
know
just
that.
a site assessment from the lottery. I don't think it's in a statute. That's what they look for. So, I can actually, this is from Steve Martin's, Assistant Director, Regional Manager, for the Mass Lottery Commission. And,
Lottery considers tobacco a staple.
yes.
Well, they go hand in hand.
promote-
Lo-
And
Liquor,
newspapers.
They promote-
lottery.
Newspapers, yeah.
They
Yeah.
promote tobacco?
That's what I'm saying.
So,
Can I- can
the-
I just-
yes,
That's
you,
what it
I mean,
sounds
not that
like.
I
I
don't
didn't make a
believe you.
copy, but you
Yeah.
can keep this only because
Well,
it's in my email.
it'd have to be part of the public record anyway, so, but that's,
It's, as I said, that's for
subject
another
for
store.
another day, yeah, wow.
Well, so,
Yeah.
so we would be
Getting
at a
go
great
after the little
disadvantage, and it
package.
really wouldn't be beneficial for my client to buy the business if he not only couldn't have tobacco, but more importantly, the lottery, because it's not just lottery sales, it's the lottery commission, the agent commission. It's a big part of the business. There are numbers that wouldn't make this store work if we couldn't get that.
They don't have a waiver conditions like they don't have a waiver conditions for that? You can't request a waiver from tobacco?
I could ask, but that's another whole process, so, yeah,
I
with
think
the
try
state.
that. That may be more beneficial too.
This is crazy.
It's mind-boggling, yeah.
So the combination, even if we could forego the tobacco, losing the lottery would be huge.
Every lottery ticket you buy goes to tobacco promotion, you know?
Just as the board rattles that around in your head, your background, sir, what is your background in?
I am here in America in 1999. I came here in this country by the lottery visa system.
Okay.
Me, my wife, and my son. And after 9 months, I started business here. And time to time is a situation, so I sold the business, buy business. So first time I buy the gas station in Dedham. And personally, I'm all set after 15 or 16 years when I buy the gas station. All 4 or 5 convenience stores, I run the business, and I can't make any good money because time by time, tobacco price is high, milk prices, in the convenience store, people are not feeling comfortable over. But I start in Dedham, is good location, and I have a high volume of gas sale over there. Lots of competition, but I'm not worried about that. And the same owner, they are linked. So somebody referred to him my name. He is doing over there business, so you take the same opportunity with the convenience store and the gas. I come in here, I meet with David. He's very nice person. He's a CPA guy. He recommended me. He's from my country, and he take all the responsibilities, all the numbers and everything. I check with David right away. He give me everything is fine. But the gas contract, I go with him. Everything is fine because this is very important in the gas business. So mind is not goes to the tobacco license. When I make the corporation, all my licenses I applied here. I think about in the regular basis we take the licenses.
What about the
Now
gas
me,
stations? Have you,
and David is all set with everything. Just the tobacco license, I received a call from Mark because you are on vacation and I just come back, you call me second day. And when you ask me, I can't give you the tobacco license because 500 feet there is. So you ask me if you have attorney. So she contact with me. So this is my first experience in, 19 years. So I called to Lara. She knows me almost 15, 16 years. She take care of all my businesses. So I'm the person, I don't want to go wrong way. I always follow the rules. If I have some problem in the business I buy from David, I expend my maybe 15 years money I buy business, and I am always in trouble. Anybody make a one mistake and I'm out of business. I don't want to make any problem for David. I treat him like my brother, we go together. Even I have option to get out, but I tell him I go at the end. What is in my favor, he make the decision. If he make the decision in my favor, so I do. Because in my businesses, no violations. But
Now, how
only
many gas stations have you owned?
one.
And you had tobacco?
I have everything, tobacco, ATM, air machine.
He currently still operates
full
that.
range of business I have.
He does currently.
And the
he's
landlord,
never
he-
had a violation?
No.
Okay, so you're experienced.
But the problem is that you can trust on employees.
Right.
Every morning, 2 days, 3 days, I call him, Michael, just take care. Anybody buy tobacco? I have 2 machines in my store. One is in the scanner, and secondly, sometimes people are not recognized. They have some. So I have another machine. You put on the machine and just push the button. He asks you the expired ID or underage ID. So it's big words over there. You show to the customers. Sometimes people are not comfortable.
So you got 2 separate machines.
He kick
that
your
check it
counter
different.
and what is this? And so I have a big machine. He showed up everything.
Well, you're aware that the state went to 21 years.
Yeah, 21 years, no flavors. Everything is finished last
Because
year.
of
I
us.
go to the meeting in my
Because of
town.
us. So and that's
Yeah.
how seriously we take it here in this town.
Personally, I don't want to run the business on tobacco. My focus is always in the groceries and the gas business. So this is the part of the business. I have the small store, only 15 feet by 10 feet. But all the neighbors are happy. They are convenience stores. But everybody like that because my gas price is good and my inside people are working. One is the computer engineer. He is a student in the Northeast. He's a computer engineer. Always people loves him. 3 years he worked with me. Indian, student. And another guy is very soft spoken. He is Ethiopian, African American, but very nice person.
Now, David, what are your franchise obligations?
Yeah.
There really is no franchise obligation.
Okay.
My only obligation is to buy mobile gas. That's it.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Judge,
That's it. There is no other.
I scanned through this letter. It's only an opinion.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
one. The other things on the last paragraph, it says, in my personal opinion, outside the scope of the lottery assessment, the lack of these product lines individually or in whole. That's what it is. That means
Right.
not all are required.
No, I think council
They are-
presented it
they are-
that way.
they
Yeah,
are-
she presented it that way.
They are desired to increase their sales. That's why they're looking at it. But if he has other means of traffic without these products, they could satisfy the needs. It's not mandatory that they should have tobacco.
Well, the lottery wants to maximize their revenue.
That's right.
At their,
Yeah.
at their
I'm sure.
So.
They also want to maximize their
The,
revenue
s-
too.
the simple part of a complex situation is, one, we need to be consistent. Two, we have to be fair and treat, run it as compliance as everybody. And three, we're tasked with the difficult decision. Let's work it out. Ron, or Chris, wanna start? You know
One
that?
last question,
Sure,
one
please.
last one, and I believe I'm the only business near a school, right?
You are the only business that is within the 500 feet of the school.
Right, okay, just if you
Right.
keep that in mind, because I don't think there will be a precedence after this, because there is nobody else that
Well, I
can
was
even
just-
get
I
one.
was gonna indicate this will be the first decision the board makes on a new applicant within 500 feet of a school.
And when we changed the
And-
tobacco regulations, 5-6 years ago, I mean, it was a big topic of discussion, because I remember I was on the boards at that time too, and I was like, I think we actually moved it even farther because of your establishment. Originally, I think we were looking at a smaller buffer zone even, and we moved
Could
it,
have been,
yeah.
could have been
yeah.
300 to 500.
It was 300,
We're
yeah.
looking at other distances too, and the unique situation here, I did tell Dave that one of the most important things is that the Board of Health either changes your regulation or preserves it. So if a new applicant came in that was never at a location, you would wanna have enough basis to not have them come into you and say, well, you just did it for this other business. This is one part of this discussion that's unique. The unique part is that there's already an establishment in,
Yeah,
in
it's something I was gonna
there.
bring up, actually. And I think that's probably the core of where we need to look at how we make our decision.
Mhm.
If this was someone opening up a brand-new establishment, I don't think there'd really be much of a discussion. Item B, if you're 500 feet, sorry, can't help
No,
you.
Right.
But we've got an established business, one that's been there for quite some time.
I've been there 23 years, and I think 20 or so before me.
Right,
as
so
a gas
they're
station.
established not just for the current owner, but for our town. Our residents use that place. And I think we could potentially harm the business in its existing form, in where it will go with the new owner, and to our residents, if we decide to not grant this license.
Are we,
But we do have to change,
Yeah.
as you said, we'd have to make that, I think that when that policy was made, it probably wasn't thought of, what if it's an existing business?
And just to help with it, you would have to grant a waiver to that regulation because it exists right now.
Mhm.
And then we'd have to do.
And
Right.
then, as I discussed with the owner, there could be concessions.
Mhm.
Like
So-
if you get this waiver, and he was a little concerned, but I suggested that potential is there to change the fine structure. We have 4 steps in our fine structure.
Mhm.
First one's 300, second one's 14 days without sale and 300. Third one is 60 days and 300. Fourth one is a loss of license. So maybe jumping into a different step, so we are cognizant that it's very important that no sales occur, but, and we discussed this today, sometimes that's impossible to have no sales, but
Right.
maybe 1 or 2 and that's it, or maybe 1 and that's it. And I did tell him, that's up to the board, not
Yeah.
me. But there should be some kind of concession given up by them within the opportunity to be granted a waiver.
I'd agree with
I would
that.
just add that to it.
my
Go ahead,
question,
Bob.
my
Oh, go ahead.
question is, we do have the authority and powers within our regulation to waive that requirement, one. The second one, how much publicity that we have to give it before the public needs to participate in it before we give the waiver? Have you satisfied that requirement?
There's no,
I don't believe
they're
so.
here at a meeting, it's up to the
It's a-
board at
it's a
each
publicly
individual
posted meeting, so-
I understand, but was the
There's-
public,
there's no
was the public
requirement.
aware that there's maybe a waiver request and waiver going to happen? Is that a question to answer for us?
No,
If
there's-
somebody asks a question, we were not aware of it being a request for waiver.
Well, it was my intentions of chairing this meeting to allow any public comment on it, and I would still encourage, as you know, I encourage all public comment. I mean, if anybody here from the public does wanna, speak to the issue, I'm certainly gonna allow public feedback, but, no, I mean, I think you bring up a good
Right.
talking point. I
Right.
mean, is there anybody here that would want public opinion on this? Yeah, please, sir.
I may.
Just come to the podium and identify yourself, even though we all know who you are.
As Bill's
think
coming
he
to
owes
the
me.
podium, just so the board knows, as Bill's coming to the podium, you can grant waivers to your own regulations, any Board of Health meeting you decide to hold with the request from an applicant. So you can do that tonight if you so wish. So,
Hi, I'm Bill Gath, an honorary citizen. I live in Natick. I'm an honorary citizen of Ashland. I'm chairman of the Ashland Day Committee. And I just want to put in a plus for Dave here. He has helped the Ashland Day Committee over the years. Last 3 years, we've been selling corn, and all the proceeds go to support Ashland Day. And he's been very helpful to us. In addition, he supplies us with all this ice that we use in Ashland Day. So I just want to put in a good word for him.
Well, thank you. That
Thanks,
was
Bill.
very nice. Very nice.
To the chair and the health agent, just because I wasn't here, if we already have these tobacco policies in place, what was the impetus to include this 500 feet from a school? I mean, I realize, kids may be a little bit closer in proximity, but if you're gonna check IDs, a kid can go to any other store that sells tobacco, and I agree with what Chris said. I think it would be a significant impediment. I don't know what the financial structure of a gas station is. It's gotta be hard. I'm sure that, that Dave isn't a millionaire and that you're not gonna be a millionaire from the store with the amount of volume. And even though, I'm not a smoker myself, it is a legal thing, and I think if you follow the rules and regulations of the town of Ashland, and you're already a pre-existing business, and it's gonna inhibit your ability to sell the business, I don't necessarily think that, this is just my personal opinion, I don't think that's necessarily fair of us. I do understand the regulations, and I understand from John, and obviously with, the loss of our former chairperson, how close that hits home. And so in principle, I think what Chris said would maybe be the way to handle it would be, for a new business, that's something that's already clearly written, but for this one existing business, I think to deny you that would be a significant impediment to you purchasing this business from what you've said and from what Dave has said. I don't know that that's fair that we do that.
This
Mr. Chair,
brings
I can-
to-
Sorry, I was
Yeah.
just to answer the question, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt you,
no.
Luigi. The regulation, and David had the same question earlier today, these regulations were part of a template from the Mass Association of Health Boards. So to go deep into it, the only thing I can think of, they don't state colleges. I think they were looking at schools that may have walkers, people walking out of school going home, especially walkers that live close to the school would be passing by a business. So, but I would have to say that that's the only thing I can think of at this point, is to prevent that. Where colleges, their cars are older, they're 18 and over, now it's 21, so. But that's the only thing I can, they came out of the Mass Association of Health Boards.
Okay.
And Attorney DJ Wilson out of the Mass Municipal Association. They were put together by them.
I'm thinking loud. This is being unique and only one establishment which is closer. And we know that we need to look at the economic benefits the new owner will have it. But subsequent to this, if he decides to sell it, the same question will come next time.
That's why
So
we need
what
to
is the,
change.
what, we need to change the regulation and grandfather all such establishments, or remove that restriction, one of these
Yeah,
two.
we have to talk about that.
So if you
I think
grandfather
that's
it,
two separate issues,
then
yeah.
we are safer, that way the new owner cannot come back for other establishments to establish it, if you want to maintain that safe distance.
Go ahead, Chris, I was just
Yeah,
gonna try to answer.
I just wanted to ask the
Katie,
current owner, do you see a fair amount of business come around the end of the school day with some of the kids coming in at the end of the school day, maybe buying a soda or an ice cream or something like that?
We used to when we had the ice cream, but we removed that,
Uh-huh.
and they don't come in. You can ask with the crossing guard, Ms. McNanny there. They all go to Dunkin' Donuts and everything. We get the teachers. They come in every day, all the time.
Yeah.
But we probably get, especially on a Friday, maybe 5 to 8 kids.
Okay.
And there's no advertisement. And you don't see any tobacco signs anyway, because we are cognizant.
Right.
Again, we all dislike it,
Yeah,
but it is part of our business, and,
Yep.
and it would be a huge impact if we couldn't do that.
I totally understand that.
Any other comments? I mean, I'll just weigh in. I mean, part of sitting in the seat is you've got to treat people fairly, and you've got to treat people, and, David has said it multiple times, I don't think any of us like the sale of tobacco, but it is an asset to your business, and, as much as I don't like to do it, I mean, I think I'm in agreement with the entire board, is that your business has that asset, and it would affect you financially if we didn't allow it. The one thing that I wanna look at both the applicant and council is that, do you have a clear understanding of our tobacco rules? And do you realize how much of a jerk I am? Cause Dave will tell you, I'm a big one. And we have a 0 tolerance to tobacco sales here.
Yeah.
Fair but strict.
We're firm but fair, yeah, and it's tough love with us, it's like, we're
Mr.
difficult with it, so,
Mr.
be
Hassan
careful
has-
what you wish for, you might
Right.
get it.
Right. No, I think Mr. Hassan has experience with this, and he's been good so far. He's had no violations. Also, he has that Gilbarco barcode reader for the back of the license, and a secondary machine if that fails.
Well, are you
So-
selling your machine to him?
Yeah,
So it would essentially be the same system.
exactly.
But the
And so-
problem is that, I am doing business in Dedham, another Gulf gas station. They have the same register, same passport, but the clerk scan the ID and it make a mistake. I don't know, the wrong thing is coming or what is happen over there. So he's out of tobacco for 2 weeks, last 6 months before. And usually you should have to check the ID up front, because you have to check the face too. Because for an example, you give your ID to her
Right.
or another person, and just the clerk, he scan in the machine, he can check the proper guy, the photo, the same guy is behind the counter. So there's lots of chances to make a mistake. When the town he sent to the guys, almost all guys, fat guys, nobody asks question. Usually people make a mistake. This is my experience.
Well,
So,
we tell people here all the time.
yeah.
I'll make it real simple for you. You
Yes.
card everybody.
If one mistake,
Card everybody.
if anybody make for any chance for mistake, so I pay him key money, and almost $70,000 JPOLEP he gave me the estimate to fix the store, and almost 3 years I have to pay more money to him. So I don't want to take the big risk for just for one violation.
No, you don't.
So I asked to the Mr. Mark, he called me. So I asked him, because I have more businesses, and this is the money I save penny, a dollar, and I work hard, and I expand for another opportunity, good town, nice town, good people, but the law is very tough. If my employee, for an example, he make a mistake, so I am out of business. I have no exit. Even nobody buy, nobody pay my key money back. Even I pay him for the key money, I pay him in 3 years more money, and then after I expend almost $70,000, because he is mechanic. He know how to fix the cars. He don't know how to run the business.
Hey, easy with that.
So I have to.
And you're still gonna run the.
No.
I'm still gonna own the real estate. I'm
I-
still gonna be full time
I
in
have
the
to fix-
garage.
The garage.
Yeah.
He's just leasing this store.
Because I have
It's too
experience.
much.
That's
So
even better than.
first I
Yeah.
came here, I saw there is no proper ice cream coolers, no frozen food, no bathroom stuff, no kitchen stuff, no dog food, cat food, no proper medicine rack. Even he run the gas station business, he don't have the automotive shelf over there, proper automotive. So my goal is that I improve the business inside. My goal is not that I sell the tobacco or cigars or whatever. So my goal is that I improve my items. He has a very big, good size store, nice and clean, good walk-in cooler. But only one mistake, his employee, he make mistake, and he has to, I'm sorry. So sorry is not work for me.
Right.
And even sometime honor, he make the mistake.
So he's hoping we can continue with, your actual regulation,
So-
not change the violations, just keep them the way you guys have them on the books.
So, it seems like we're at a consensus, but you never assume. I mean, does the board wanna take action? Does somebody wanna make a motion?
I will make a motion.
Okay.
Please forgive me if I don't say if I don't pronounce your name correctly.
Call him Sammy.
I'll do my
Sammy.
best. I move that we waive the regulation noted in section E11, Article B of the current regulations of the Ashland Board of Health restricting the sale of tobacco products for new applicant Mahmoud Ul Hussein.
Yes.
That was good.
Thank you.
Good. Is there a second?
I would put at the address, make it so it's complete at the address, of what's your address?
103 West Union Street.
Just so it's complete for that.
And
ad.
put
That's
the
a
You
name,
good
may move somewhere else,
and the
Yeah.
name also.
that way if, you might not even need it if you move somewhere else.
At the address, I'm just tailing right to the end, at the address 103 West Union Street.
That's all.
And that keeps it, and that's a good point, that keeps it at that address there too. Okay,
But I'll second that.
all right, further discussion?
The only other thing would be then potentially with penalties
Correct.
is it still incumbent upon, I'm sorry, Mr.
Mahmoud
Hassan.
Hassan.
Is it still incumbent upon him to take over his recent infraction, or does he get to start new?
It's up
If
to
you're,
the
if you're
board.
grandfathering in, you know, a tobacco license, does that include, I don't know that that's fair either, if we,
No, I don't think.
what do you think?
This was part of the discussion when the new regulations were done.
Mhm.
We said the new owner will have the new start.
Yeah, and that
That's what we had,
Okay.
had part of it.
Two previous changeovers, we had one at Farmers Ram and we had one at Hess going to Speedy. So where they started off on a
Started fresh.
fresh slate.
Starting, okay, so you got a clean slate,
Oh,
so I
thank you.
feel good about that, if that's the way it is.
And everybody's fine with that?
Yeah.
And you don't wanna change the penalty structure or anything like that?
You know, I started writing down the idea for changing the penalty structure, and I thought, again, we go back to if this were, I don't know, I think really, it's a business that exists already that's really changing ownership. And as I was writing it down, I'm like, okay, that's Stern, that's Stern, that's Stern. And then I realized, well, why should he have a different penalty structure than every other business that's out there?
I think it's a fair
The
point.
reality is, if we feel that the current penalties aren't stiff enough, when we revisit the policy, we can look at changing the penalties. I don't think it would be fair to
I think it's
impose
more
it.
our problem than
Right.
the
I really do. I don't think it
This,
would be fair.
this was recognized when the change of ownership
Yeah.
occurs. It,
Yeah.
it starts from the beginning.
Yeah.
That was recognized during the discussion. We had several tobacco vendors were there, and they wanted it, and then this was recognized.
And I think I'm in agreement with the rest of the board, but I just really wanna stress to you that, and much like we said to the last people that were here, don't view us as your enemy, view us as your ally. We take this very, very seriously, and when I said earlier that, the state changing it was a lot of the work that this gentleman did and our former chair did to bring this, to highlight the thing. You need us to come in and talk to your staff, please reach out to us, one of us will come, we will do it. We try to be proactive with this, but also know, once again, I want you to know that you have to have a clear understanding of our rules and regulations.
Yeah, you don't
And-
worry about that because same thing I apply
Okay.
here. I have the second machine. You have the papers for the second machine?
And
I
you-
have in my
Does
another
he have
store.
our policy?
Yes.
Yeah.
He does, okay.
Yeah.
Key thing is.
And council has a good understanding of them? And the fee structure?
In
and
the
fine print?
beginning, I take care by myself, but I find out the right person. I have the experienced person, but this a distance. He's agreed to work here with me, so I have no problem. They are already trained. But if I find out new person, so I expend my time with him and I show him. Always I check how to check the ID.
And how quick does this
Well-
changeover gonna happen?
We were supposed to do it September 1st.
When we scan in the machine, so he showed up you. If you are not 21 years old or expired ID, he showed up you. So then after you make tobacco sale. For an example, David, he showed up me paperwork. He don't have the high volume of sale of tobacco. Only 30 packs, 25. Usually gas stations and stores sell more than 100 packs. But he has only 30, 25 or highest is the 40 packs. So 40% comes to the stage of lots of time to scan ID. So it doesn't matter. You scan, you make every single tobacco sale, you scan ID, so
Every
you are all
single one.
set.
Every single one.
So
That's
you
the
have no
key.
mistake chance.
That's the key.
And
Key,
so no-
key thing is, if you have an existing employee from a different town,
Yeah.
and our regulation is different, he shouldn't keep in his mind the old regulation and then work with it.
Yeah.
He or she should be looking at this, review of the regulations, make sure understands what we are looking for and
Yeah.
what we enforce here.
Yeah.
And-
Here in Framingham, I have somebody contact with me, he has experience, and I tell him you need 15 days training with us. So then after I see if you are reliable person, because I live 1 hour from here. So I want to leave here the right person. I don't want to leave my store, he kill me. Because money is involved in this business.
I wanna be here before
first
midnight.
time I do the biggest store, biggest screen I can see. So I don't want to make any mistakes,
Just two things that, closing comments, and it might be a possible amendment to Chris's amendment. One, we do have a compliance officer in town.
Okay.
We do come around, we look store owners right in the eye and say,
Okay.
we try to catch you doing the right thing. We don't try to
Yeah.
catch you doing the wrong thing, we
Okay.
try to catch you doing the right thing.
Okay.
So know that we will send people into your store
Yeah.
to try to buy,
Yeah.
to buy tobacco products.
Yeah.
I just wanna disclose that. The second thing, and I don't know that we need to make it part of the motion, maybe we can just make it a gentleman's agreement, because I know that guy back there, he's a good guy.
I have
And
only
the-
one
no,
more
in the crowd
question
back
in
there,
my mind.
is that when you officially do the sale,
Yeah.
you give Mark a courtesy call and let us know that it's changed, and so then we can come out in a couple days afterwards and just, kind of introduce ourselves and.
I think
know.
the date will actually be dependent on the gas contracts being yeah, so I think it'll be the fuel supplier
Yeah.
that
Well, it's
sort of
already,
governs
just gotta
that.
sign it.
Yeah,
It's actually
Just
all done.
is an effort to be proactive, we
Yeah.
just wanna, come in and introduce ourselves, and
right.
Mark can give a little speech, and
And just so you know, our tobacco compliance officer just doesn't set up operational compliance checks. He actually goes to your store, I don't know if you saw him recently, but in the next week you will. And he will be in there to look at the point of sale to make sure everything's in compliance, such as signage. There's several signs we require. So most important in our regulation, it does say that you read and understood them and that you sign and attest to that, so I'll need something in writing from you. And also it says in our regulation that you're responsible for instructing any and all employees. And one of the most important things with employees is just to make sure that they don't feel intimidated by anyone that says they don't have an ID, or try to be extra friendly and say, oh, that's okay for today. Because normally, that is typically what we see when a sale occurs, is that
Every
they're
single
not
time.
too nice, or they feel intimidated. So you don't want that happening to you either.
Okay.
oh, sure.
I just want to give a little support. I'm sorry, Joe Magnani, 2 Harper Lane.
I have to be very careful
Yep.
what I say here this evening for specific reasons. But the system that they currently have, that Mr. DePrizio has, freezes the register. So when you scan a tobacco item, the first thing you ask for is their license, and it has to be a mass ID. It has to be a mass license, not a mass ID. And I can't tell you how many times people have said some wonderful things to the people that work the register, because you don't have a mass license, or you're from out of state. Out-of-state licenses do work, so you have to be very careful. But it freezes it. So that minimizes the risk of an underage individual trying to purchase. And you look at the license, you look at them, and you do the things that you would normally do, but that's the second thing that, or the second effort that works with respect to this register policy that they have. And if they don't have it, you just hit the no sale button and say, have a wonderful day, and they take off. And there's no questions asked, and it's done, and there's no sale.
There's
So
no
I just wanted to
override.
let Dave know, just because he has put that in, and since that's been in, we haven't had any issues, any issues at all.
And that's why I asked if you're selling that system, that's part of the sale.
Yes, part of the sale, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Always good to
Thank
see you.
I mean, nice to see you too.
One
Thank you.
question in my mind.
Just for public, why don't you read my recommendation is read your motion one more time, and then we do have a second.
I move that we waive the regulation noted in section E11, Article B of the current regulations of the Ashland Board of Health restricting the sale of tobacco products for applicant Mahmoud Ul Hassan at the address 103 West Union Street.
All right, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So 4-0.
Give a call a couple days before and come in to sign that.
Meet both of us?
Release. I'm looking at, once, he has to sign a release that he understands the regulations.
And I have
That
one
you
more
instruct.
question in my mind. For any reason, if I want to sell the business and I want to get out from it. What is the numbers in my mind? I try my luck here. I do hard work, and sometimes, if things happen, you are not successful because too many things. Rent is high. You are responsible for snowplow. You are responsible for maintenance. Too many things. So if I want to sell this business and I want to, make decision, so another owner, he buy the business. So these terms and conditions for tobacco license transferable to him?
No, he has to come and apply for it.
Yeah.
But
So same
this-
like
You would-
today?
This
you would go through
incident
the same
becomes
process.
a,
As of
this
today,
incident
you would go
becomes
through
a
the same
precedent,
Yeah.
and it's possible that we may re-review our regulations and change it to make it better.
Even for that one.
If we don't change the tobacco regulations as you see them, then it would be the same process as you're going through right now.
So it's transferred to another buyer. If for an example, I want to sell the business after 3 years,
Don't have to sell
I'm not
before you
successful here.
Well, he's always
Just-
thinking of the
just-
future.
Again,
What
it
thing
depends
is
on
in
what the
my mind?
regulations, our current regulations are at that time.
Yeah.
If you would just adhere to whatever the current regulations. If the regulations, as they're published right now,
Yeah.
as of today,
Yeah.
are the same regulations at such point you choose to sell, then the same process you're going through is what the person you would be selling to would be going through.
You have made a new beginning. You've set the precedent here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, good luck.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
for doing
Thank you.
business in Ashland. Good luck to you as
Thank
well.
you very
you.
much.
Hopefully we'll never see you back here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the goal. Never come back.
Yeah, I try my best here.
Go up and visit.
Many things.
There you go. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, that's why we're
That's what
we're
we
planning
like
to.
to do.
Yeah, we're planning to.
We like to visit, we don't like to see the applicants back.
All right, good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Good luck, thank you.
Item number 5, Chris's update
Thank you
on
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Update on electronic food permit application. Mr. Gath, good luck on Ashland Day.
Thank you.
For everybody watching, Ashland Day starts at what time?
Starts at, the bike parade starts at 9, but officially Ashland Day starts at 10.
10.
The bike parade for the younger
Auction
kids.
is the night before.
It's on the
Don't forget about
15th.
the auction.
Night before.
Don't forget about the auction.
Ashland Day is on the 15th, September.
September 15th, yeah. Good luck, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you do. Good luck with Ashland. The weather's gonna be good, so.
No hurricanes, that's what counts.
Here we go.
Oh, good night, Joe.
Did you get those forms?
Yeah, you got a couple that you're gonna get back to me on.
All right, Chris, your update on the electronic food permit
Okay.
application.
So back in March, this began a discussion. We had, the first step of the process was revising the current permit to operate a food establishment. And I had a little bit of input in that in just terms of page formatting. Then there was.
Great help.
Yes, yeah, well, I had input. I didn't have all of it. It
Great
was,
help.
this man right here was a big part of it too, Mr. KG. But then there was some discussion of taking the paper form and making it electronic. And at the time, I really didn't have a good sense of who uses this form and what the purpose of it was. And this became kind of my summer project on the board. Back on August 22nd, I met with Mark Oram and with Tom Curran, who is a part-time food inspector for our town and a full-time food inspector in Boston?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, I wanna make sure I give everyone the proper credit. And I asked a series of questions as to what does this form do? What is the real purpose of it, and what's the information that's important? Because to take this and make it electronic, there are a number of different ways you can go about it. There are a number of different ways the data can be stored into a computer system and fed back. But at the end of the day, I felt that my responsibility was to make it easiest for the people who use it and for the people who reference it. So after talking with Mark and with Tom, I learned that the people that fill out this form are the applicants themselves, not our staff. And that adds another layer of complexity to the idea of computerizing it, because there are not one, but two separate pages that require signatures. So in order to make this an electronic form and get signatures, you'd have to find a particular standard for an electronic signature, and there are several industry standards for electronic signatures. The problem is there isn't one currently in use by any of the towns in the Commonwealth that I know of in the city of Boston. Another piece of information that I found very useful, I had asked Mark about how many of these are out there in our town. And Mark, did I get the number right? It was around 90, somewhere like that in Ashland?
Yeah. give or
Somewhere
take.
around 90.
Without counting the temporary. Temporary
Right.
runs us into
Right.
60 plus.
Right. So even if you count the temporaries and you're looking at maybe 150 total forms, you're looking at a total of 600 sheets of paper. It's not a lot. Yeah, do we want to reduce paper? Absolutely. But it's not a ton. The city of Boston was the number somewhere around 7,000?
I believe so. 7 to 10, I believe.
7 to 10,000 applicants, and they still use a paper system. They don't have an electronic system yet. And when we started to think about the time, effort, and cost of computerizing this, not even factoring in whether or not we have the resources in town to do it or if we'd have to farm it out, we realized that the best possible scenario would be to not at this time move forward with making it electronic and to keep the form as it is. I think the other factor too is we're looking at the potential for, Mark, if you can help me with the language on it, the new food code. Or I should say the newer food code than we are.
Correct.
And at such time we move to that, should we move to that, this form would change as well. And if we went through the expense and the time of computerizing this form now and would have to change even slightly the computerization, we could incur more expense. So for the time being, I think the decision that we made was to keep the form and keep the system we have in place now. At such time we move to the new system, to the new food code, and we change the form, we can revisit it.
Very nice. A lot of work went into that, so thank you guys. Much appreciated, and I know there's more to come, but it's kind of interesting when you travel down that path and you realize, wait, I thought we had a good idea, but maybe it wasn't such a good idea. But
Yeah,
so-
you know, you have to do with almost everything you do, you have to do something equivalent to a cost analysis.
Good.
You just do.
Well, thank you guys.
thanks for
Good
the
job
work.
on that. Item number 6, discuss our upcoming juuling and vaping seminar, tentatively scheduled for October 23rd, 2018. Mark?
And that includes a lot of time and effort by all. Chris has been very helpful looking for our venue. I have sent out a few notices to the region that will be participating in several towns, just not Framingham and Natick, but surrounding towns. And right now, the town of Millis did respond that they'll notify their schools. I sent out a reminder today, because I sent out an original one, then a reminder a week ago, and another reminder this week. It appears people are busy, but the message I'm trying to get across to my fellows is that this is for adults. It's also for the school community, that teachers and parents of schools. And so with that said, I'm also working with Decisions at Every Turn. In their part of it, they're gonna try to promote locally here in Ashland to notify the schools, to notify the parents. And the training, again, as I said, is for adults. And there's probably information that will be relayed that parents need to know that really their own children should know, such as how to know if something's happening and so forth. With that said, Chris has been working on the venue. It's hard to get a number right now. I think my fellows are probably looking October 23rd. That's a long ways away, but it's not. It's
not,
only
no. 6 weeks.
a few weeks away,
Huh.
so.
Yeah.
And we're locked in on that, or
So,
we're still checking?
as
on
far
it?
as the venue goes, for the Mass Bay Framingham Campus Auditorium, they've reserved the date for us. I've been given a commitment to not being charged a rental fee, but right now, the chief of police has a concern as to the potential size of the event and may mandate that we have a police detail, which would cost money.
Okay.
And that I'm currently negotiating with him.
That's Mass-based chief, or that's
Mass
Framingham?
Base Chief.
Mass-based chief.
Okay, so right now, the last we left off was an email to see if there is, what I really want to know is what the parameters are that would tilt the wheel to incurring that expense, and if there's any way we can not have that expense, if there's something we can do. And they're definitely open to continuing the conversation. In fact, he's gonna have a discussion with the events manager tomorrow morning and get
Oh,
back
good.
to me tomorrow.
Good.
Just because I wanna make sure that there's some contingency, I left word with the person in charge of the space at the Framingham main campus, Framingham Library, main campus, down on, Lexington Street. Is it Lexington, I think, yeah?
Chris,
Yeah.
To see what their space requirements are.
do you have an estimate on what it would cost to have the police detail?
Approximately $200.
We do have a budget for that if need be.
I was gonna say, I mean, if, and I understand the chief's concern, and
Mhm.
I actually respect the chief's concern.
Yep.
But, you know, relay that I wouldn't want to see $200 get in the way of, I think,
Right.
this important of the
Okay.
event, so.
I'd be happy to
W-
contribute
that's
to that
actually good to know.
myself.
We have it in our
Yeah.
budget. We are revolving fund,
That's why
but
I
that's
asked.
nice of you to offer.
Yeah, but I was gonna say,
Ron, but we
Okay.
can.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't think we would tap the budget, I think we would
Yeah.
come up with a.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
I agree with
Make it
that,
happen.
yeah.
And
Yeah, so that
Act-
shouldn't be,
actually-
if that's it, if that's all it
actually,
is, that's not an
I-
impediment at all then.
I was,
Okay.
I was actually
Yeah.
gonna say, you know, does the board wanna take action on it? I mean, I think a police detail actually adds credibility to the event,
Mhm.
so I would actually encourage that they charge us, and we'll figure it out.
Okay, that's.
I mean, I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
agree, but,
No,
That's fine.
I'm all
Not that-
for it.
not that I wanna
Happy
throw
to-
money
yeah,
around,
happy to
but,
contribute.
If there is an issue,
yeah, there's an issue.
we'll finance it, don't
Yeah.
worry.
Is there
$200
any
should
way
be
we
good.
can approximate what we'd expect for attendance?
You know, I'd love to tell you that it's gonna be 300 people, I mean, it could be.
300 is probably
Too
a
many.
little stretching the
Right.
capacity.
No,
that
but
we
I
have,
mean,
but-
I can't honestly tell you what I think they.
See, when they asked me for a guess,
Yeah.
I said if I had to take a wild guess, I think it'd be reasonable to expect 50, but I'd like to see 100.
Right, I think that's probably a good
Is
number.
that,
Good number.
That's a
is
good
there an
number.
RSV
Good guess.
mechanism, RSVP mechanism on that, or,
I'm sorry?
are you asking people to respond with a confirmation?
They will not be able to probably give me a number, such as my fellow health agents, cause they're not for sure who's going to attend. They'll probably send out notices to their schools as well as their general population, but it's so hard to predict. I think
I mean, you-
50 to 100 is a good educated guess.
Yeah.
We often forget in our town is, think about how big Framingham is, and if Framingham does a blast out to their public schools, I mean, if they get 5% turnout, that's a huge turnout. It's a mind-boggling turnout compared to our turnout, so. Hopefully we'll have to turn people away. I mean, that should be the key, yeah. I mean, what's the room hold? 200 comfortably?
I'd have to double check. I would say, I don't wanna guess.
Okay.
I don't wanna guess. But
But more than 100 holds.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
It is interesting how thoughtful the chief of police is that, when I said to him, I kind of suggested if we were to set a limit as to the number of people, would that make a difference? And he says, wouldn't that violate the open meeting laws? He says, well, this isn't a meeting, this is an event.
Right, there you go.
But he's very,
Yeah.
he's right on top of it.
There you go. Good. Okay. So, yeah, we'll take care of that. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So, the next steps here, we're still working, I'm sorry, Laura?
I was just saying, how can you promote it for?
So, we're locked in on the date and we're locked in on the venue, right?
I would say if money for the detail is not an option, then we've got it.
It won't be an option.
Then we've got an option. Then
Not
we've
an
got that
option.
venue, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not, we haven't signed the contract, but it's reserved for us.
So October 23rd, and that is
Yeah.
a
It's a Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, okay. So, you guys are all good?
And I
And-
believe it was 6:30 to 8, right?
Just so
Is
I'm
that
understanding,
what we
Mark,
said?
I know Ashland, Decisions at Every Turn is gonna be a key partner in this. You've reached out to Framingham, Medway,
The towns are, Holliston, Medway, Framingham, Natick. Then they go up to Wayland, Sudbury, Hudson, Marlboro, I believe. I can look at the emails I've been sending, all
So,
the people are on there.
Does he have the
Sure.
exact location of the venue?
Yeah,
If you're
we're-
sending the invitations, you need to give that.
Yeah, and
address.
that's next is the actual invitations.
I would say
think that
before we
will,
print the invitations, let's sign the contract.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't
Yeah.
we button that up in the
Yeah.
next, what, by Monday?
Yeah.
By
I would
Monday,
say.
and then we can
on Medway.
communicate offline, and
Mhm.
kind of figure it out, and then we'll come up with a communication plan. Maybe you and I can work together on, blasting the, flyer and a digital piece that we can, easily disseminate, yeah. Any questions, concerns? I think it's good. Now, the only other thing that I have is, I'm not a juuling and vaping expert. I don't think any of us at the table are. I know decisions at every turn are much more knowledgeable than us, but should we be looking for a keynote speaker? Should we be
Well, our
looking for
keynote
some-
speaker is Mary Cole from the State Department of
Okay.
Public Health.
Okay.
She's actually presenting the conference,
Okay.
so she'll be there. We did ask Dr. Reap and the other doctor, but they haven't responded to see if they could be there. But Mary Cole.
So Mary is confirmed?
Yeah, she ran one, yes, she did
Okay.
confirm. And she ran one of these in Quincy, was it, Laura? Randolph. And Laura actually happened to catch that, so I give her the credit.
Oh, good.
And by doing so, it generated a call, and she was the one that said, well, I can do one nationally. I said it'd probably be for a region, and it led over to the fact it will be for the region, so.
And you've let the public health directors in all these
Yeah,
towns know?
3 times.
3 times, okay, thank you.
Yes.
The only other thing that I would recommend, and it might put us over the limit, is if we identify each town that's coming, do we invite the retailers as well? Because I think not only do you educate the parents, but you also educate the retailers, I think is
Sure.
I think it's more proactive. I mean, you can sit there and tell, the parents all the time, these are the dangers, these are the dangers. We were all kids. Oh, okay, Mom, whatever. Yeah, whatever. But if the retailers know that we know, does it make a stronger community, I think?
Should.
I think so.
That's a good point.
Okay.
There's something interesting on this topic. When was the last time we had cigarette ads, right, on radio? Long time, right?
Yeah,
remember.
long
Can't
time.
have 'em, right?
Yeah.
There are juuling ads on radio right now.
Oh, all the time,
Yeah, constantly.
constantly, yep. Yep. That's a great point.
And that's something I think that in the grand scheme of things, on a bigger level, the same lobby that made the commercials for cigarettes go away, we've got to apply the same thing. I mean, it's the same type of product.
It's a typical thing. I bet you if we follow the money back here, I bet you a lot of the money goes right back to the tobacco company.
Sure it does.
Yeah, of course it
Yeah.
does. Yeah, it
They're
does.
looking for ways to,
To maximize their, it's like, the owner of the patch companies are the tobacco companies, and most people don't realize that and stuff.
well, I always said in the computer business, the people creating computer viruses are the antivirus people.
It's so true. Hey, so it's been, and the one that, as we've talked about, we've had some challenges here, but I think this is good. I think we've, kudos to Mark and Laura and Chris and the rest of the team here. This is, the proactive community public health that I think we were all agreeing that when we establish goals. So I think this is good, real good. And it just kind of brings it to the next hub. Our next meeting is the food code meeting, correct? All right, so you guys are all aware of that, right? In the food code meeting? And we're gonna have it here, right?
Unless we
And what's
push
the
it.
response been? And do we need to do another blitz on that? Do another blitz on that? Because potentially,
It's the 25th, right?
yeah, 2 weeks from tonight,
Have we asked
potentially,
them
I'd
for,
like to think that this room would be too small.
did we ask them to confirm, or did we just said this is what's happening?
We did not ask them to confirm.
Then we
But
will
maybe
know
in
the
our
number.
next blitz,
We'll not know the
can
number
you
unless
please
we
let
ask.
us know if you plan to attend?
Okay.
So we can get a number, because, we can, I would like to think that I would be glad to have a problem that this room wasn't too big, wasn't big enough.
Or some mechanism to register whatever that they want to do, that way.
Because if we
get it
start
fine.
getting we've got 2 weeks, and I know you're busy tomorrow, but if we can bless that in the next couple of days, and we start seeing that we're gonna get a bigger response, then maybe we look at Plan B for another venue. I think we're safe to start here, but,
Yeah.
any other concerns about that? Okay, good. All right, an important item, number 7, review of minutes. We've got minutes from August 13th, and August 28th. Give you
I
a
actually
couple.
read them all at lunch today.
There you go. That was a good lunch. Does the board want to take any action on either or both?
I found no problems with them, so I would move that we accept both
August 13th and August 28th?
August 13th and 28th as submitted.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That's a 4-0 vote. All right, thank you for that. And then, item number 8, Health Agents Report. Mr. Oram, you're up.
Let me start off by saying the budget. FY19 is partially tabulated by Munis and not 100% yet, but I don't know of any outliers at this point. But I did have a discussion with our public health nurse. We just recently received a TB patient in our town, so they tend to require daily visits for medicine adherence. So we might find that we're covered for that expense within the full year's budget, but we'll have to be very careful as the half of the year, by the middle of our fiscal year, to watch to make sure there's still enough money to cover the TB case. And we just got another case tonight. I just found it on Maven. They sent an email. Maven's an electronic surveillance system to tell us of various cases that we have out there for review by our nurse, and she'll be handling that case. That one's not as intensive for time.
So they don't quarantine people anymore for TB?
No, they
used to do
well,
that before.
They stay at their home. If they are, they have to adhere to the medicine. That's why the daily visits, to make sure that's occurring. There's no presently quarantine order put on that person. And in past cases, we have not had to do that either.
Okay.
I think
Olden days they used to do that before.
Yeah.
You know that. Not
if, like with H1N1, this town was the second town in Massachusetts to have someone diagnosed with H1N1. And the discussion occurred, do we quarantine them or not? Family just voluntarily quarantined their child. So again, it depends on how they're working with us, but the Board of Health does have that procedure in place if you need to, but hopefully we can get voluntary
No, if that's
process.
not a practice or not required, then we don't want to put the people unnecessarily in trouble. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good point, though, that we do have that right if need be.
Yeah.
So that's that on the budget. And I'll have a better budget report when I catch up on Munis, because right now the present budget says we're 100% spent, and we're not. So don't trust the numbers you might see in this report. I think it's somehow it says FY19, but I think it's the final out for FY18. And something happened here where they labeled it. We'll get it all straightened out.
Okay.
So don't trust the numbers you see as 100% spent by September 5th. Well, we're in big trouble.
Look at him. He's examining that thing. Look at him.
We're not 100% spent, promise you that.
He's still looking at the gifts and donations.
Yeah, he's
One of these days I'll get fixed.
Now, I told them to send the spreadsheet. I would redo the thing without those things. They didn't send it to me. At least white out. You just take it out next time.
At least we can laugh about it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All
Next
right.
one is downtown water main break at the post office. Last, a week ago Thursday, no, 2 weeks ago this Thursday, we had a water main break, and August 30th is noted. And with that break, we had 6 food facilities that were affected, all downtown here. Some of them, we sent out an email blast to all our food facilities, and some of them we found out their managers only get the email and they weren't in-house at the time. So I started the process of walking to each business and making sure they were closing down or closing out. The 2 facilities that could stay open had water available, and that was for hand washing. That's our 2 retail food facilities. They handle minimum handling of food, no open foods. So they were able to stay open as long as they could maintain their bathrooms for their employees. Ironically though, Market Basket called us. They didn't have a water shortage, but they're just, it's amazing. So they saw that, realizing that occurred, they called up their vendor who provides them bottled water to bring in a truck. And I don't know if they thought it would be for a while, so I give them a credit for that, you know, that they were not without water, but they took their own initiative. And then I called them and they called it back. I said, no, we're getting water except for one restaurant. But that was pretty neat, that email blast said, if you have lost water. So they didn't know how bad it was in town. And it was quite bad for the time being. We lost quite a bit of water right near the post office. It actually caused 2 facilities near it to have water coming out of their floor drains, because that's how much water penetrated the ground. So it was a lot of water. So, but I give the water department credit. They were out right away. They basically started figuring how they could route water back to businesses. And even the business, one of the closest businesses to them, was able to route the water completely around to them. So the only business that unfortunately didn't have water was Stone's, because that was the main line that they could not, they had to keep it shut down to fix the water break. The others, they could shut off nozzles around it and still get water to those other businesses. But the one thing that I did explain to each business is, you know, when you have no water, please call us. It says right on the form there that they have to post. Call when you have an outage of electricity, water, so forth and so on. We prefer that than having the fire department tell us there's no water, no electricity, and so forth. This year, I'm going to change that form to go along with this same agenda item to have the emergency form that they have to post signed by the manager, and no different from our tobacco regulations that say, and I have also notified all my employees. So that way they are educated, they sign and attest to that, and hopefully it will help. And maybe even when we have our food code overview, we can discuss that as part of it too. It's very important that they communicate that. Most of them, I'd say out of the 6, only 2 knew that we sent out an email blast. And we're looking at a reverse calling system too, that we have just a subgroup of all food establishments, and we can take, or Ed Berman does most of the work, you can circle the area you want the calls to go out, and you can hit the subgroup. So only those food facilities would be called. So we're looking at various ways to keep improving our output, but we also want input too. So we're working on both of those aspects to loss of power and so forth. And West Nile virus update, it's all over the news, but again, we had what's today? Tomorrow night, they'll be spraying the quadrant down near Laurelton Drive and the surrounding towns, surrounding streets. It's near a town, that's why I was thinking about that. And the spraying will be where they found that pool of mosquitoes, which they have a trap on Laurelton Drive. And we're continuing to advise people. I continue to send out the reports that we receive from the state. At this point, we're up to 10 infected people in Massachusetts, not Ashland, in Massachusetts, that have acquired West Nile virus, have been infected by West Nile virus. And the mosquito population, most of the state, it's been throughout the state, you'll find, John, your comment a month ago or so was perfect. West Nile virus, I think you said, is everywhere. We have to be ready all the time.
For sure.
So we continue to send that message out. Be ready all the time. If you're out at night for activities, if you can avoid it, we suggest that. If not, long sleeves, mosquito spray with 25% DEET. But more importantly, try to avoid outdoor activity at dusk and so forth. But the mosquito population, it depends on where you are. Some people would tell me it's not too bad this year in our neighborhood, but if you're near a swamp or something, it could be worse. So it depends. And EEE, the good news on all this, we have a very low or moderate, not low to remote risk of EEE issues this year. I don't know how to explain that. I'm sure there'll be data coming out on why that was reduced so much this year. It could be the weather patterns, it could be anything, but it'll be interesting to know why that was so low where West Nile virus is prevalent. So.
Well, an interesting piece and an expensive piece is, unfortunately, one of my dogs had an anabolic shock situation over the weekend.
Wow.
And it was quite expensive, and it was interesting, as I want to stress the word quite expensive, like so much. But as I'm talking to the veterinarian, like, hey, how could this happen? So of course he doesn't know who he's talking to at 1:30 on a Saturday morning, a.m. That he's talking to a chairman of a board of health, and he's like, well, a lot of towns are spraying for West Nile virus now. And I'm like, excuse me? And he's like, I'm not saying that this was what happened with your dog, but he did know who I was, not that I'm anybody, but he's like, a lot of these towns need to communicate to people, like, when you're spraying for these things, you've got to bring in your pets.
Yeah.
And you've got to bring in your cat. Don't assume your cat, is going to be, you need, and especially if anybody's watching this tonight, it needs to be communicated. You need to bring in your pets. You need to make sure your windows are shut. And I'm like, are you saying that this, was caused by that? And he's like, I'm not saying but this is the 24-hour veterinarian place in Natick, because it's the only place open 24 hours. He said they have seen a mind-boggling, I'm quoting, a mind-boggling spike in these type of occurrences with pets all throughout the Metro West area. And I'm like, what causes it? He goes, we'd love to know. We'd love to know, because I went to bed Friday night at 11 o'clock and my dog was fine, and at 1:30 in the morning I thought my dog was dead. Nothing, it had been fine all night long, and I'm like, what caused it? And he's like, he could have got bitten by a tick, he could have got bitten by a spider, has he ever eaten a snake? I'm like, yeah, he's eaten a snake, we've caught him with a snake before. And he's like, and then he brings up the West Nile virus, and then of course I tell him, like, well, geez, I'm very familiar with West Nile virus. So I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just trying to do it as more like a public awareness that there might be, it's like this whole autism piece that we talk about. It, does this cause autism? But it might trigger something. So people need to be aware of it.
Thank you for bringing that up, John. That's in our outgoing, KG, go ahead, I didn't.
Sure, sorry, go ahead, you finish.
I was just gonna say, in our outgoing message, we do say that make sure your animals and pets are inside.
Yep.
Dog dishes or whatever you leave outside, bring those in, or empty them out and leave them inside. Close your windows. But one important thing that our general public should know is you can opt out. And it's very easy to do. You just call the Mass Mosquito Control Program at 508-393-3055, or they're also at www.cmmcp.org, and you can opt out. And the nice thing about modern technology, the truck has GPS on it. They will trigger that point of address where that machine shuts off as you go by the address. In the old days, they had to hit a button.
Technology.
Now they just GPS it. The minute they go by your house, if you opt out, the sprayer will shut off. And then
Why don't you
return.
slowly give that information one more time?
Okay, and that's to call the Central Mass Mosquito Control Program if you wish to opt out, or to find out more education, you can call 508-393-3055, or their website, which stands for Central Mass Mosquito Control Program, is www.cmmcp.org. That was my public. Yeah.
Or if anybody has any questions, they can call the office.
Oh, and they can always call the Board of Health.
Yeah. In that line, I just want to see someday we pass some policies to get all the detention ponds where they have a stagnant water, make them to move or do something with it. So we should ask these, because most of these are in big developments with new children population and vulnerable population. So we need to get that.
And they will do some of that work, the moving of streams and so forth. That's some of the work that Central Mass Mosquito Control Program does, and other programs. They'll do ditching, and they'll dig out ditches to get water moving. So
Just have to put a fountain there that keeps
even better,
active.
yeah.
So that's what Florida has it. So they've just passed any new development, they have to do this.
They're nice too.
So and then it's aesthetic value goes up for the property. So that's a good thing to do.
Anything more, sir?
that was it.
I have a request
I
for
just wanted
Mark.
to piggyback off of Mark's report. Saturday is Ashland Day, as we had Mr. Mignani and Mr. Gath here. You are planning a booth?
Yeah, we will have a booth there with information on resources if anyone needs to know about our Narcan distribution, the opioid crisis, and a group called Learn to Cope. We have information on that. We'll be promoting the Medical Reserve Corps, and our Medical Reserve Corps chair has always been with me, I think, since he was chair. We'll be there as well, so it's a fun event. We'll have other information on ticks and mosquito control, general information on being healthy in Ashland. So, and all the board members, as they know, are welcome to attend. And we look forward to seeing people at Action Day.
Mark, just a question back on the spraying. Are there regulations regarding either like stagnant water in wetlands and conservation areas where they're not allowed to spray?
Nothing.
Or there aren't any?
No,
They
but
supersede.
they, KG, you know it, they supersede even in breaching dams, they supersede, their intent, and they're allowed it through state laws to get water moving. And, but the spraying, they supersede that, but the spray they use is, I think has a life of 6 hours, but there's information on it on their website. So its effectiveness is only within 6 hours and it decays quickly.
Yep.
They use the safest product they can use.
Yep.
But again, you don't want to have a truck going by and you're outside. So, and I'm sure they have emergency triggers. If they see a walker,
Yep.
they're going to shut off the machine and stop. You know, so.
Public health, every other regulation stops.
But in your conversations with them, I mean, we had a pretty brutal winter this past winter. So you would think that the mosquito population would have been killed. So I mean, maybe it's not even West Nile virus anymore. Maybe it's Massachusetts virus. I mean, because
yeah.
West Nile, it came from the West Niles and the mosquitoes migrated through produce and shipments and stuff. But is it, I mean, it's not really a West Nile problem. I mean, it's a Massachusetts problem now. I mean, because a harsh winter should have stopped it, because this is the third year in a row, right?
True.
So what is there any talk about, eradicating it?
I think
I mean, we're controlling it. We're
it's
not
that
really.
major cycle,
Okay.
and you want to make sure you don't start killing other parts of your population, the ecosystem, such as bats. Bats are very effective in removing mosquitoes, but if we're using agents of certain types, might be pesticides, we may be killing the other part of the ecosystem that we truly need to balance out additional mosquitoes or even honeybees, we're killing them.
Dragonflies.
I mean, I could get Ed Hart down here and he could talk with you guys all night about this, and it's so true though.
Which
that
might be good though,
gotta-
actually.
Yeah,
So
maybe
people
have
have
a
a better
session just
understanding.
on the
Yeah.
ecosystem
Yeah.
and have Ed here on
Mark, I had a
pesticides.
request.
That's a great
I
idea.
know that we have to give the food inspection summary to the state.
Yeah, they
If
haven't
you've done
requested
that-
it yet, but
No,
I'm gonna
it's standard required by 31st July. You're supposed to put it. They don't
Yeah,
request it
usually they'll send me an email where to send it, and
No, it's standard,
what I'll
thing.
do is I'll email the person
you-
from last year asking what the status is.
Yeah, it's 31st July. That's the deadline date. That's what they said
They usually
in the food code.
that was last year. I don't know if anything's
No,
changed.
they didn't move it. Last year they just gave an option for you to
Yeah,
fill
so
it
I'll
in
check.
time so that whatever lagging behind could be
In fact,
done.
I can
So
do
if
it
you
right
can, once
now.
you finish it, if you can give it to us, that'll be helpful.
Yeah, that's
in-
with the summer and the issues we've had, the database stuff can occur, but we have to prioritize based on what's happening. And they're not chasing us, but I'm gonna send an email
Do you
to
extract
them.
it out of the system, or is that
I'm gonna send an email to them
hand-collected
right
data?
He's gonna send it and CC us right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I'll
know,
s-
understand.
I'll
That's
ask,
why.
is the date passed, and if so, we'll get it to you ASAP.
Isn't that
Um,
stated in the food code, 31st July?
No, it's just stated
I think
that
so.
we do our inspect. If you know it's in there, let me know.
I'll send you
we
that
inspect twice a
reference.
year, but I don't think
Yeah,
it's
I
in
think
the
I read
food
it
code.
carefully
But I'll send out an
multiple
email.
times.
We'll get an
Just
answer,
inform.
but
Okay.
we'll have an answer by tomorrow.
The other question that I have is, I did receive an email, one of the emails suggesting that we shouldn't have these mill pond on the TV. What was the reasoning for not have them on the TV? Is there any specific reason?
That was one member's
Yeah.
opinion, who
Right.
I did speak with, and unfortunately couldn't be here tonight because of
I know.
the situation.
Was there any thing that we were doing wrong by having them public?
If you're asking me, my personal opinion, I thought that was a very effective meeting, I thought.
Well, it is, but if somebody has questioned, then was there a strong reason for it? That's what I'm asking. Not that I know
I
of,
did
but
have a
because
conversation with that person today, and
Mhm.
I think much to her surprise, I didn't disagree with much that she was saying, but I think she has a different style.
okay.
I think
So
it's fair
there-
to say a different style than I might have, but
there was nothing troubling in general to have them here, right? It's okay.
in your opinion.
Yeah, it's fine for me because at least,
I think we got we got the man's attention.
yeah.
I think, I think
It
he
needed.
knows the seriousness of it.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask something to what?
If you could just let me finish, because as you know, I'm getting very old and I forget things, so just let me finish. One thing, you guys all got my email about, over the weekend, at Stone's?
Yeah.
And we have to be fair and we have to be consistent with people, but I really wanna give a shout out to the management of John Stone's. They handled the situation, they had a power outage. I walked in, got a call from the fire department, I walked in. They were very proactive. They quite obviously had a contingency plan if they ever lost power. It's not often that you get to, compliment, and we're often, the police will have to, say you did something wrong. I just wanna give a shout out to Stone's. They, not only was their ownership, but their management team top notch, very professional, very receptive. And I just wanna give them kudos for that.
Much in the same light, once I heard what Mark said about Market Basket, I'd like to publicly thank the Market Basket family and the DeMillis for their citizenship and their community mindedness. To just think of something like that on their own without any input really shows me something, how much they respect our community. So thank you to the Market Basket family.
The floor is yours, sir.
That's for the record.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Now, this is going back to the health agent, through the chairman to the health agent, about the West Nile spraying. What are the cautious of people who have central air?
You're to shut off your air conditioner if you have any intake from outside air. That was another part of the announcement.
Yeah,
Good question.
Because it came through on email blasts and stuff like that.
Good question.
And I will quick, and again, thinking from the beginning, the 9/11, and again, in case this state has any sort of helping hand, in case they need it, down in the Carolinas for the weekend.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything we missed?
Nothing?
No?
We're all set.
Good.
It's good.
Any suggestions for, our next meeting is essentially gonna be the food code meeting, so, do we wanna schedule
Is Tom
that?
going to be there on that, or?
Is Tom gonna be at our meeting?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
oh, he's been invited and he should be here, unless he has an emergency, but no, he's planning to be here.
Do we wanna look at dates, or do we wanna just figure out something after the 25th?
Well, if I were to make a suggestion,
Please.
right, the 2nd and the 16th would be our normal meetings for October. Now, do we want to have a meeting 1 week after? Do we have enough business to conduct on that meeting? I think that's something we can decide between now and then.
Well,
But
to your point, if we
yeah.
stay on the 2nd and 16th, and then our Juuling and vaping
Is the
thing
23rd.
would be on the 23rd.
Right, which isn't really a meeting.
Right, right.
That's an event. I tend to like the idea, especially since, now that we've got a renewed sense of purpose with our newly signed document about, and we said we're gonna meet on the 1st and 3rd. Look, things happen and there are
Sure.
times when we have to change, but I think it's the best service we can do to ourselves, our schedules, and the public who might wanna be interested in those things to do our best to try and stick to that. So
I couldn't agree more.
I
Couldn't
can
agree
see
more.
where maybe not meeting on the 2nd, there may not be a need to meet on the 2nd, but I would consider the 16th for sure as.
Just based on my experience,
Yeah.
it's always easier to cancel a meeting
Exactly.
than it is to schedule a meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are good with 2nd and then 2nd,
Sure.
16th, and the 23rd?
Right. Yeah, based on today's discussion on this tobacco, do we want to re-review that tobacco regulations and see what needs to be tweaked sometime in the future?
I think that would be wise.
Yeah, I
Do
do
we wanna
too.
make that as an agenda item for the 2nd?
Yes, that's fine.
Or do we, yeah,
Second's
because we're
fine.
really not gonna be able to do it on the 25th.
So that, no, we'll
Okay.
leave that one for
Okay.
entirely what we have already purposed it for.
And would we need Cheryl Sabaro's feedback on
I would
something like
suggest that the board provide feedback on anything you'd like to see changed. I'll forward it off to DJ, I forget his last name now, I just said it earlier, Wilson.
Wilson, yeah.
And Cheryl Sabaro. They're both attorneys who sent us the original template, and see, have them review your comments and get that all back to the board, and then obviously you can't communicate through emails, but
Right.
but get your feedback in, we'll send it out to those two attorneys and then get their feedback back, feed it out to you for a meeting.
Is there a copy of that available in a Word document?
Yeah,
that you can
that's
send
what
out?
I was
Yeah,
going to
oh, yeah,
ask. You read my mind.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this, even though we're gonna essentially do, the 25th is all the food code, I'll just put on a blurb on the next agenda, reminder about, tobacco regulations, and
Right.
we can talk about it in public for 5 minutes in case we all, decided, after Laura sends us the document, what about this, what about that? But then it protects us from an open meeting standpoint.
Sure.
Okay,
Sure.
that makes sense?
Yep.
To me.
All right, don't be scared, somebody make a motion, let's get out of here.
Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you and good evening.